What is it?
Well, it's called a randomizer, and it's fitted to the guidance systems and operates under a very complex scientific principle called potluck. Now, no one knows where we're going. Not even the Black Guardian.
Not even us.
Hello and welcome to the Randomizer Podcast. This is episode 8. I am Tim.
I'm Charles.
And I'm David.
Yes, we have a special guest this week. Our friend David Legge has joined us. Woo! So, as usual, we have a spoiler warning for the latest Doctor Who episode, which was The Haunting of Villa Deodati, and indeed a spoiler warning for all Doctor Who that preceded it. And a spoiler warning too for the Randomizer Podcast episode 8. So, gents, let's talk about that Doctor Who episode, The Haunting of Villa Deodati.
Well, I'm really glad that you can say it, because I couldn't remember the name and couldn't actually pronounce it. No, generally, great episode. I thought this is definitely the best of the season so far. Probably the best Jodie episode so far.
I would agree with you there. I have a problem with actually remembering any of the episodes for this season.
You mean the titles or just the episodes?
Yeah, just the titles, basically. Yeah. But I did think it was generally a good episode.
Yeah, me too. I was a bit more lukewarm at first, but I think that was because I was still sulking because Chaz didn't like Praxis as much as I did.
No.
But no, I genuinely enjoyed it. Again, if I'm going to nitpick, and of course we are, there were bits that didn't sort of gel together, but it's very fussy. You know, like the hand coming out of the painting, I thought was a brilliant image, really scary and odd, and I haven't seen anything like that before. But nothing else came out of paintings. It seemed a bit random. It was just like they had, this will be cool, and that was it. That was the sole motivation for it. But you know what? I'll take it.
It was a gripping story. Even until the Cyberman appeared, it was very interesting what was going on. Once the Cyberman appeared, it was even more interesting, especially the performance, because it is actually genuinely scary performance of a Cyberman.
Yeah, the half mask really lets you into the actor's performance. David, what did you think?
I sometimes think it was the same with the New Year episode where the Dalek appeared. I'm kind of thinking to myself, would this be as good if it hadn't had the Dalek in it? And the same with the Cyberman. I wasn't sure about the hand. That was a bit odd. It was like the episode before, they didn't have the hand, but they had the finger. You know,
should work up to an arm next week.
You think maybe if they had the skeleton on its own, like moving about, you know.
Yeah, I suppose it was very Addams Family and stuff, you know. I was so surprised to see something that seemed to hold together so well and had a really genuinely creepy atmosphere. Nearly as creepy as Lord Byron. I mean, I actually liked him, you know. I mean, Byron's always one of those larger-than-life characters anyway, and the fact that he kept hitting on Jodie I thought was hilarious. Nice actually touch, yeah. Really good fun. I thought the guest cast were really good. The whole thing with Graham possibly seeing real ghosts was actually quite amusing as well.
I loved Graham looking for the toilet because a lot of people say that in drama you never get people going to the toilet.
It's because they can't find it.
Is that the first time in Doctor Who someone has actually mentioned going to a toilet?
Oh, what? Last week we had the first question mark in Doctor Who.
So there you go, see? This is a series of firsts.
Yeah. Poor Graham never reaching his goal, so I did see a Twitter comment about he must have been bursting by the end of it. It's like, that's your biggest takeaway.
Yeah, but let's be honest, he is sort of over 50, so we all need to go to the toilet every 5 minutes.
Yeah. That's why the camera never showed the floor near it after a certain point in the episode.
Excuse me, I'm just going to the toilet. Will be my thing. One of the things I had against it, I think, and it's probably one of the things I've got against the last couple of series as a whole, there's actually too many characters, I think, and I don't think the characters are expanded enough.
I think we've been saying the same generally, that
definitely.
When they do get stuff to do, it weirdly seems to be when they're kind of split up from the team and paired off with other incidental characters that they get a bit more development.
But I mean, that is what they used to do in the sort of Hartnell days, you know, they would pair the companions off, or, you know, separate everybody to give them a bit of a story. Davey's completely right. The problem is having 3 companions and then having guests in as well, there's not enough for anybody to do.
So what did we have from them this time? We had Graham's Toilet Quest.
Ryan was, I don't know, was he propping
Playing the
up a chair?
piano, of course.
Oh yeah, really badly.
It's like Ghostlight all over again, except the piano and Ghostlight was good. I did get Ghostlight vibes from it with the kind of creepy house and a lot of that atmosphere. Somebody pointed out, I think they've used the same location for Angels in Manhattan. So it's weird, we've seen the place before, but it didn't occur to me at the time at all.
That does happen quite a lot in Doctor Who.
Well, you've seen lots of Heath Hospital in Cardiff over the years.
In the Millennium Stadium.
That curved sort of circular corridor they use quite a lot.
So the episode rattles along, and I loved the fact that it was sort of Shelley causing all the hauntings, or maybe most of the hauntings, Graham's ghosts notwithstanding.
Good old Hugh Bennett, yeah.
It was also quite creepy to have the foreshadow of Shelley's death by drowning. So the historical accuracy was, pretty
That
good.
was really quite clever and quite creepy.
And it's a new thing. We're talking about sort of new powers in terms of all this mind wiping that's going on, but also the Doctor being able to show somebody their own death. And she refers to it as a Time Lord thing, as if there were established history for it. So it feels loaded enough that it might come back.
I don't mind that. I mean, I don't mind them adding certain things as long as it sort of doesn't go too far. I recently been watching the season 26 box set. Now, Survival's great, but there is one bit in it where he touches Sergeant Patterson on the head and you hear this and he sort of knocks him out. One finger can be a deadly weapon. Stuff like that's nonsense, but sort of stuff like this, yeah, definitely.
I think as long as the plot doesn't hinge on it too much.
Yeah. Or I don't know, I think you can flip that around to as long as it's there for a purpose. It's not your get out of jail free card, but it actually is something that is earned rather than just we're in a corner in the writing, we need something to get us out of this.
Usually a sonic screwdriver.
Yeah, well, that's what it is.
Psychic paper.
It's MacGuffins, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're sort of devices or powers that are invented solely because you've written yourself into a corner. I think the arc towards the end of the season has become apparent. Obviously, we're leading firmly into the next episode, having a huge amount of Cyberman action going on in it. It's set us well up for the last 2 episodes of the season, I think. Anything else to say about it?
Yeah, the Cyberman. He was absolutely visceral. The scene where Mary Shelley speaks to him, appealing to his humanity, and it does seem like she's reaching his soul, for want of a better word, and then suddenly he comes back with, your child is weak and whiny, and my own child, I slit their throats. I mean, my God, that was...
You should never say
chilling.
anything nasty about somebody's kids. It's like, that's why you know he's a monster.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a nice touch.
No, it was nicely twisted around, and actually for once a kind of rejection of what would have maybe been in the Moffat era, the kind of turning point where everything was all hunky-dory and cuddly, or at least where that sort of approach has borne fruit so many times in the past that it's nice, almost nicely perverse, to sort of reject it and actually have it backfire. And it's a shame it was Mary Shelley's big moment and it didn't work. Her stepping up to play Doctor, but I think it's still a really nice little bit of writing.
Oh, I definitely agree. I mean, it was a wonderful moment. And the other thing that really stood at this particular episode was Jodie's performance. This is her best performance so far. The speech about the summit of the mountain.
Oh, the Ryan Smackdown.
Yeah, that. I mean,
I felt sorry for him. He looked like a sort of kicked puppy by the end of that
I
speech.
don't, I'd drown him.
I think Doctor Who's gone back and forth philosophically, if you like, on this needs the many outweigh the... Oh, hang on, that's Star Trek. But it's gone back and forth on that philosophical thing about sacrificing one life to save thousands. I think it always does come down on that, no, let's fix this problem right here, right now, save the person in front of us and we'll worry about the mess later. I guess I can respect that. It does feel like, I think Ryan was sort of stepping up to try and play Doctor with that moral point and got that thrown back in his face. What's interesting about it for me, I think, is that this is a little bit of Jodie's Doctor being a bit assertive and mean in a way that we saw in Capaldi, and also that you haven't really seen before. She's been all sort of cuddly family, let's talk our way out of things. And actually, that chimes for me really strongly with that line about I don't want to lose anybody else to this.
I'm assuming that was about Bill.
I think Bill, Adric...
And Danny Pink.
Danny who?
I actually really like sort of Jodie doing dark. I think she suits it. I do, because we do get this sort of bumbly, cuddly version, and to be honest, I don't think it works that well.
I'm a little over the kind of
I
earnest...
really am. I want this sort of more darker version. She's sort of always comes across when she walks into a room as light, and for her to be dark and sort of brooding and a bit more dangerous.
Yeah.
It's a really good juxtaposition.
And it means when she goes back into that kind of more kind, earnest mode, there's that underlying darkness that can come out. So
Absolutely.
there's depth and there's a bit of threat, and you're more, I think, invested in which way she's going to play this.
It's like I said the other week when we were talking about Colin Baker. Darkness didn't really come into Doctor Who very much before Colin Baker. You had the odd moment with Tom Baker and Hartnell, etc. But you didn't have a lot of darkness, and introducing darkness to the Doctor does add a sort of, a real dramatic twist, especially if it's used sparingly. That happened with Tennant in The Waters of Mars, for example.
Yeah.
And it was really particularly good.
I think darkness is absolutely fine, but you really have to have the balance.
Yes.
I was interested in what you were saying last week about the whole cancer thing. I think that's possibly, if it's not handled properly, a step too far.
Yeah.
Because as you say, people who might have cancer
Exactly.
are optimistic about a cure for the disease. And then the doctor says, 2,000 years in the future, there's still no cure.
Yeah, I mean, it seems unrealistic for one, but it also, it's going back to sort of like a point I had about Rosa, was the space racist from the year 2 million or whatever. Racism's still a thing. Where's the hope?
Yeah, it's sometimes dangerous having Doctor Who being too real.
Yeah. I would agree.
Definitely have to do with skill.
Yeah.
No, I think this has been a great episode, a real sort of climb up towards the end of the season, which I hope will deliver. I think certainly I've got no fears in terms of visual spectacle, because one thing that's been consistently good this series has been the visuals, but a few road bumps here and there, but generally speaking, the look of the show I think has never been better.
It's looked great this year, and I'm really up for the final. It's got me invested, so they've done their job and they've done it well.
Can I ask for some more monsters?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of my 6-year-old self, watching it and thinking, where's all the monsters?
Well, you're about to have more Cybermen than you can swing a cat at.
I mean,
Yeah,
you have
great.
got the wonderful monsters, the dregs from Orphan 55, which was possibly the greatest pile of shit of this season.
It wasn't very good, I'll give you that. But you've got the dregs, you've got those spider type things.
The Skithra.
Skithra, yeah. Have you got that written down somewhere?
No, because I keep calling them the Arachnaut, because they're
I
not
prefer
like
the Arachno.
Arachnaut, yeah, you've got them, and we've basically seen them before. We saw the Judoon, and I quite like the Judoon, even though they're a bit Judge Dredd-ish. And I like Judge Dredd, and I like them, but there doesn't seem to be anything this season or last season we think, wow, it's a new monster, and that's great.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a line between the darker version of Jodie's Doctor and Dr. Ruth, because I've always had this kind of nervousness from what we've seen of Ruth that that Doctor is very ruthless.
Yeah,
But, the backfiring gun thing I keep going on about, and there's definitely a kind of a feeling that this is akin to the War Doctor. This is a Doctor who's kind of tooled up for a fight of some shape or form.
The Valiant, or
Yeah, it might not be this joined up, but there might be a trajectory there if the Doctor does get darker and darker.
Okay, last season didn't have any continuity. This season's had a lot, but you're really going to turn off a lot of people if you start delving too much into things like that, because the average viewer's not going to give a shit.
You need to tell people why it's important.
Yeah.
Why it's important to the character.
Yeah, but I think also this entire thing that it creates more and more exposition. Connor came up with a really good point this week. We were talking about it, and he said that this series, since Chibnall's taken over, has been all tell and very little show. Everything is talked about or explained, but we don't see it, and it's a visual show. So show the fucking thing rather than bombard us with
totally
exposition
agree,
every 5 minutes.
That's a good point, I think. Yeah.
I mean, okay, it might be budgetary, I don't know.
But
I don't think it is. I think it's imaginationary.
Yeah. I definitely think that.
Don't tell people, show.
The trick is that's harder than it sounds, especially because a lot of the exposition has been in terms of contextualising, like the Aleppo speech. That is hard to show without some sort of Aleppo montage, or welcome to the Aleppo tourist board or something, I don't know.
I thought Aleppo was one of the Marx Brothers. Thank you very much.
I think it's time to ask Dr. Schultz.
We must ask the doctor.
I couldn't get hold of Dr. Schultz this week, just didn't answer any emails or messages, so I think we might have to go to that second opinion we've been talking about.
I
Chaz, and
definitely agree. I think we should ask Dr. Legge.
let's ask Dr. Legge.
There is another.
What other?
Hello.
A man.
Hello, I'm Dr. Legge.
Scary. Welcome. It's nice of you to step into the breach as our temporary scientific advisor. I wanted to ask about the sonic screwdriver. It's one of those sort of staples of the show that was written out back in Peter Davison's era, but of course came back in with a vengeance in the new version of the series.
Is it a stapler?
Screwdriver.
Ah, I thought you said it was a stapler.
What it is, just to give you a chance to sort of think scientifically
Yes.
about it, it's a device that uses sonic power, sonic energy to manipulate, well, basically anything the plot needs manipulating. What I wanted to ask Dr. Legge was, is there any kind of scientific possibility to the idea of using sonic vibration to open locks or to get out of plot holes in general?
It's total bunkum.
Thank you very much, Dr. Legge. Third opinion?
A man is the sum of his memories, you know, a Time Lord even more so.
And it's time for your cheating memory. This is the part of the show where we randomly select a Doctor Who episode and then discuss what we can remember of it, and then go away and watch it and come back with fresh insights, or at least more ramblings. So last time the randomizer gave us yet another Matt Smith. Lovely though Matt Smith's era is, we would like something new, so we're very hopeful for something new this time. But first we need to discuss The Beast Below. Now this is Matt Smith's second story only, and it's also the second story for Amy Pond, the companion, so it very much represents her first journey in the TARDIS, and we talked a bit about this last time, about how there are sort of almost a pattern for these sort of stories with the various new Who companions. But David, let's hear your thoughts on Beast Below.
I have to say, honestly, I have kind of vague memories about it. I enjoyed it at the time, yeah, but I enjoyed most of Mr. Matthew Smith's adventures as Doctor Who. I remember the Smilers being incredibly creepy and nicely designed.
Yeah, the sort of like fairground booth creatures with
Yeah.
a nasty head when they turn around.
Yeah, I did like the very start of it, you know, the kid sort of has to wait behind and, you know, bad boy, Timmy.
Why does it have to be Timmy?
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to use for you from now on. It's a really good introduction for Amy to the Doctor's world again, like Clara and Akatan. She's very natural. She cares about the kids again, and that whole sequence where they have to watch the video and then either choose to remember or forget it and stuff.
I think it's forget or protest.
Forget or protest,
Yeah.
that's it. And then, you know, she chooses to sort of try to steer the Doctor away, and I thought that was rather lovely.
Yeah, I also loved List 10.
Yes.
A really nice, again, a nice idea. Having a futuristic version of the Queen, you know.
Cool Britannia writ large.
Yes, and the fact she's quite sassy and she kicks bottom, you know.
What's her line? Basically, I rule.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. And also the fact that she didn't realise she was 300 years old. I mean, that's quite a clever point with the porcelain mask and so forth, you know.
Nearly as old as Prince Philip.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh, I hope they don't let her drive.
I like to think her son Charles is still waiting.
I love it.
I think it had a kind of fun spirit of kind of this absurd idea of Britain as a collection of skyscrapers glued to the back of a giant whale. Just somehow the story sells that absurd idea in a lovely way. The throwaway joke about Scotland going off by itself.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's the best.
I think you can get away with a lot of that when you've got a Scottish companion and a Scottish showrunner as well.
And a Scottish podcast.
Yeah, it just always reminds me of that brilliant line about Strax going to that awful place.
That's
Glasgow.
wonderful.
Could it have been affected by tangential deviation coming out of the warp ellipse?
We were talking 2 weeks ago about Nabil Shaban
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
being the first disabled actor.
Oh yeah, were we
There was
wrong?
also, there was also an actor called Graham Lineman or something like that. He was a guy who was the Time Lord in the Three Doctors.
Oh,
And he was also the marshal in The Seeds of Death. He was a disabled actor, and you see him in stuff like Doomwatch, and he was given prominent acting roles within the BBC.
Yeah.
In the 70s, yeah. But you couldn't, because he walked with like crutches, you know, a lot of his roles were like sitting down. So his Doctor Who roles were all like sitting down.
Poignant reminder that not every disability is so visible as well. We talked about the Smilers.
When I used to go to the fairgrounds, there was a thing where it was like the clowns' heads, and you used to move back and forward, and you used to put ping pong balls in the clown's mouth, and that kind of shot them into a target or something like that. But that freaked me out. That's what it reminded me of.
And I love the little bit with the whale. You know, it's being tortured, but what does it do? It's playing hide and seek with the girl.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so beautiful. And it's like a lot of Matt Smith's. I mean, that entire first series had a fairy tale theme to it anyway.
The tentacles reminded me of something in a classic computer game called Half-Life. Sort of creatures made out of these tentacles that's also sound sensitive, I think, shoots out, crashes through the glass window, and is a huge hazard you have to navigate in this game. And I'm not sure how conscious that design choice was, but it definitely sets them up as immediately very threatening.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of positive shock when you see them playing.
Yeah.
And it really helps with that big twist around at the end. He's so skillful at that sort of writing, Moffat, I think.
I wonder if he's going to come back.
The bit at the end where the doctor's sort of deciding he was literally going to lobotomise the creature is quite harrowing, really, because, I mean, this is Matt Smith's more or less first full Doctor appearance, and he really sells it. When he was cast, I know everybody was, oh my god, he's too young, and I was probably the same, but within the first few minutes of 11th Hour, he was the Doctor, and there was absolutely no, contest.
It's an extraordinary performance.
He is, absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I always have the problem when they announce the next Doctor because it's never who I want, So I'm always...
One day it will be you.
Because I'm into like drama and I'm into actors, I'm always slightly disappointed because there's always actors out there who I would love to see play the part. And obviously they're never cast because you've got the whole of equity to choose from.
Yep.
And it was same with Matt Smith. I thought, who the hell is Matt Smith, And I thought he's too young, what they cast him for, Why haven't they got like someone else in, like Mark Warren or someone like that, I thought would make a great Doctor. But he starts and he's brilliant, and he continues to be brilliant. He continues to be surprising all the way through.
Yeah, he's consistently brilliant.
And in this episode, I'm struck by what we see him do is what we've been talking about now potentially for Jodie's Doctor. He does anger.
Yeah.
And he's got this anger at Amy, but also this anger at himself and the situation and the whole of the people who've enslaved this whale.
Yeah.
And he plays that against this kind of still having to do this horrific but right thing. He's saved from that terrible choice by Amy, and that begins the cementing of their bond. It's a great bit of writing and performed by an amazing actor.
Watching it again, you just realise that if this is average, how good is it during this era?
Yeah.
Look, when I give the word, press the button. The big one? Yes, maybe it works in conjunction with the others.
I think it is time to select our next episode.
All right, well, let's try and find out. Now, what could it be?
The Caretaker.
Still new series.
Still new series, not
still.
Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi.
Yeah.
So I haven't watched this since broadcast, so
Yeah,
I remember he's in the school, he's playing
Yeah.
the caretaker, obviously.
Yeah, he's so Gareth Roberts' episode. There's a teacher that looks like Matt Smith, and he thinks that's Clara's boyfriend. He's not quite pleased with himself, and then it turns out to be Danny Pink. Yeah, I mean, I suppose this is the proper introduction of Danny to the Doctor. In this one, it's a pretty middling episode in terms of anything really happening. It's not
fairly
a
throwaway
massive-
monster, I think.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Skullbox Blitzer or something.
I quite liked that.
Oh, you would.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was sort of Judge Dredd
Does sound like a
I suppose.
cocktail as well.
Yeah, I really, really like Capaldi. I think he plays the Doctor beautifully. I think he plays comedy really well in The Darkness, etc. This moves forward the sort of appearances of Missy again. Generally quite fun, but as I say, I don't remember a massive amount of this one, so
Yeah,
definitely up for a rewatch.
David?
I was never a big fan of Danny Pink.
Is that it?
Yep.
Thank you for that insight.
I think he was one of my least favourite additions to that sort of era. The fact that they had to sort of introduce another boyfriend or girlfriend for the main companion. Yeah.
I think I liked him mainly because he sort of challenged the Doctor.
Yeah.
He wasn't just up for anything the Doctor said. You know, he had his own opinion about things, and yeah, I mean, I suppose it can seem antagonistic, but considering the Doctor rarely gets challenged by companions.
Yeah, I can understand why he was there, yeah, and it was relatively well done, yeah, but sometimes you think maybe they should have tried to do something else than give the companion a boyfriend.
Yeah, possibly.
I think it's part of the package of setting up Clara as trying to maintain two lives.
Yeah.
So there's the home life and there's the TARDIS life, and
Yeah,
it
but I
is
just
part
think they could possibly have done something a bit different with it.
Again, it's that thing of Clara being a bit of a control freak, thinking she can juggle everything.
And one of the things I least liked about that season was the finale. You know, when you'd Danny appearing as a Cyberman, and that terrible moment when the Brigadier appears.
Do you know,
I really, really disliked that.
do you know I'm going to be really controversial because I know that practically everybody hates that. I kind of liked it. I don't know why. I kind of liked it. It sort of was... It was broadcast on Remembrance Weekend, so I mean, I suppose all that was deliberate. You know, that speech by Danny about the dead will protect the Earth. I mean, yeah, it could have probably been done better, handled better, but I kind of like the ethos of it.
I suppose we've all got things we don't like.
Absolutely.
I think it was part of my general warming up to Capaldi, this story. It was early days, and it took me until I think at least his second season before I was not humming and hawing a bit about him as the Doctor. But part of that was that he was playing it a lot more abrasively at first. And we
Yes,
talked previously about how that softened out as his era went on. But I'm looking forward to rewatching this because I haven't. And Davey, you'll have to just send us in your thoughts by email or carrier pigeon. Or...
but the caretaker.
Yeah.
I don't have a sonic screwdriver because I'm not off on a romp. I call it what it is.
A great loss of pomp and circumstance.
I wanted to try something new while we've got a special guest, and it was a very quick fire sort of round, which I want to call Romp or Pomp. So we've talked a few times. Shut up.
Go on.
We've talked a few times about whether stories fall into this elusive category of romp. So I'm kind of imagining there's an alternative category of pomp and circumstance. So I'm just going to click on the randomizer since we're here a few times. We'll get a story up and just very quickly, is it a romp or is it more pomp and circumstance? So here we go. Plus it's an excuse to use the randomizer again.
True.
The Curse of Fenric. Pomp.
Pomp.
Yeah,
It's not a romp.
It's not. Yeah, it's a pump.
I think it's probably a false dichotomy here. It's not just romp and not romp, but we'll see. Okay, Curse of Fenric, there we go. Day of the Daleks. Pompy. It's quite important.
It's got a pumpy romp, isn't it?
Pumpy.
Rumpy Pumpy. Next, The Androids of Tara.
Romp.
Yeah.
Easy to agree there. Let's do a few more. Death of the Daleks. Chomp. I don't know.
Yeah. Grump.
Grump. I'm fond of this story. It's not a romp, though. There's maybe something in a story which has got a serious tone but doesn't really land well versus one which doesn't have a serious tone.
It was kind of spoiled by the incidental music.
I am strangely fond of it, but probably in that sort of
You
so
get out
wrong it's
now.
right way. Yeah. The Edge of Destruction.
Ooh.
That's not a romp by any means.
Just weird.
Just weird, yeah. Hide.
Oh.
That's
I'm
quite
hiding.
spooky.
Yeah, it's
Quite
pomp.
spooky. Death of the Daleks again. No, randomizers being
Totally
random.
random.
Still crap.
Whoa.
The Waters of Mars. Again, quite a
Definitely.
serious one.
Yeah, serious. Pomp.
Let's do a few more and then we'll call it a day. Smith and Jones. Romp.
Oh, romp. Very
Definitely.
much. Really good fun as well.
The Rings of Akaten. That's not
Romp.
The Beast Below.
Hey!
Hey.
It's not a romp.
Yeah, romp.
Okay, well, we maybe or maybe not revisit that in the future, but I think it was fun to throw a few out there and see what falls on the Rompometer.
I think you also believed it was fun.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Let him face his challenge.
So it's time for the challenge section of the show. Now, Davey, just to bring you up to speed, I have challenged Chaz to watch The Mutants because it's a story he's never managed to sit through.
He's never watched Mutants.
Never watched The Mutants. I mean,
wow.
And then once he's watched that, he's going to report back and challenge me in
Yes,
turn. So, Chaz, have you seen it?
So, the replacement DVD arrived.
Yes.
And I was all pleased.
We should do previously on the challenge.
Yeah.
And flash back to when your dog ate it.
Absolutely. It arrived. So I was hastily opening it with all excitement of a child on Christmas morning, ready to watch possibly the greatest show ever. Then I got a knock at the door. And I happened to open the door, and it was a bit of a shock, to say the least. Basically, I had travelled back from my own future. So my future self was at the door, and he was all battle scarred and worn, and
So he didn't look any different.
Yeah, I brought him in and, sort of tended to his wounds and gave him something to drink, and he basically, he's screaming at me, "What year is this? Who's the president?" And I told him, and he's "I've come to give you a message." And I was like, "Oh my God, what is it?" He said, "The future." He said, "The future is in chaos." He said, we're on the brink of extinction." And he said, "There's dregs everywhere." And I said, "How can we stop this?" And he gave me a big long speech about, how to sort of save the planet and all that. But he said that the nexus point of the destruction of Earth is if I was to put the mutants into the DVD player and press play, that starts a chain of events that will lead us to our ultimate fate.
Okay.
Blimey.
So I thought, I'm going to make the ultimate sacrifice and save the Earth, so I threw it into the fire.
So you watch it next week then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Predictable as ever, Doctor.
Alright folks, it's time for Doctor by Doctor, where we're randomly selecting a doctor and discussing their era. So, pass the doctor selection box, please.
You have the honour this time, Mr. Legge.
Great.
And I'm shaking it, as you can hear.
Is this when I admit to being a Blake Seven fan? I've never actually saw Doctor Who
You don't
before.
like Blake Seven.
Now would be a good time. 11.
Way!
Hey, Leg's 11.
Hey, absolutely.
What a guy.
That'd be Matt Smith then.
Wouldn't it?
I don't feel like I've seen much Matt Smith recently.
Well,
we just move on to next week.
See previous episodes.
Yeah.
Matt Smith. I love him. I think he's my favourite New Who Doctor.
Yes.
I can't say he's my favourite, right? I don't mean that in a disparaging way to Matt Smith. I mean, he's practically perfect. I have more favourites, but that's just established. Matt Smith, every single time I watch a Matt Smith episode again, I love him more and more, and I discover something new again and again, just watching his facial expressions, his mannerisms. The guy is fucking perfection.
Something about the mixture of Moffat and Matt Smith is that you get stories and plots that are layered and bear fruit when you rewatch them, and also performances, particularly from the lead, which bears that sort of rewatching. You can see stuff you missed the first time because there's so much going on.
I'm nearly 50 and I want Matt Smith to be my grandpa. Do you know what I mean? He's wonderful. He's a ball of loveliness. That's wiggly.
I've kind of said earlier what I thought about I love Matt Smith. Also, it's quite surprising that you've got someone who's followed someone like David Tennant. He was obviously really, really well loved. He was a fan of the show. He knew all about it. Yet Matt Smith comes in almost cold and nails it.
Yes.
Nails it totally. Yeah. Even down to the stories about his costume. You know, you can see online that they had a very, very different idea of his costume, whereas he came out, I don't know if it's true, he came out, he watched Patrick Troughton and said, that's the sort of thing I'm going to go for, the bow tie, and that sort of portrayal Yeah.
The bow tie's like his defining thing as well, you know, it's like bow ties are cool. And I also loved his evolution of his costume, you know.
Yes,
I mean, by the time we got to like his final, you know, his costume was just beautiful. I mean, it was utterly beautiful.
But again, going down the route of very, very, I suppose, traditional Doctor Who costume. It's very much a throwback to the original series.
It's as if he's like the natural successor to Pat Troughton. He's embodying Troughton in a lot of ways, you know. You find that most actors that played the Doctor have always cited Pat Troughton as the sort of, you know, the one they remember, or the sort of definitive version.
He was an actor's actor.
Yeah, very much. The youth element and everything, that is such a hard thing to play the Doctor as a sort of ancient man in a sort of this young body, but he sells it.
Yeah.
He sells everything he does.
It's interesting because a lot of the axis of kind of comparison between Doctors has been age based, so they've tended to go sort of younger, older, but in as much as there's a pattern. But in this case, you've got two young men and two very agile and physical actors as well. But the thing about Smith compared with David Tennant is that when Matt Smith gets going, it's like every bit of him's going in a different direction, which is just lovely. He's got this kind of wibbly wobbly performance. I'm not sure if it's timey-wimey, but
Moffat described him as a sort of drunk giraffe.
He also said of his face, he looked like a caricature of a handsome man. Which is all brilliant.
That's wonderful.
Because he's another sort of young, good-looking Doctor, but he has this joy and this childlike enthusiasm. Tennant has this sharp, kind of fierce, get going and run across the set kind of attitude, and Smith sort of bursts onto it in a different sort of way. We talked about how he appears from the hold in the pirate episode going yo ho ho, or don't we say that, and it's a lovely kind of approach which beautifully gives his companion something to then play against.
With a lesser actor, it could have came across as clunky and a bit pathetic and stupid, but he sells it, you know.
And a lesser writer,
I think the two cross and form, don't they? You've got room to put more of that into the script,
absolutely,
because you know he can carry it off. So the 11th hour is a great launch for him. We've alluded to it before. Introduces Amy. We get a brief bit of Rory as well. The idea of Prisoner Zero being seen out the corner of your eye is another typical Moffat creepy idea. The room that you don't notice the door of is gorgeous.
And then again, Moffat takes, for the second time at this point, doing his recycling job, he takes the time traveller's wife, as he did with Renette and Girl in the Fireplace. With Amy, you know, he meets her as a child. He's, you know,
I'll be back in 5 minutes.
I'll be back in 5 minutes, and of course he does the same with River Song and Reverse, etc. So yeah, he recycles a lot, but it's done so well, you know.
Well, Chibnall would approve.
Yeah, very true. The thing with little Amelia was absolutely beautiful. You know, the actress turned out to be Karen Gillan's cousin. You know, it wasn't even a thing that was... It just happened by accident.
Have you saw her now?
Yeah.
Almost a double.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing. That bit with her kneeling Dear Santa.
Yes.
The crack on the wall and stuff.
I love the whole first meeting with you're Scottish, fry something. Yeah. And when he throws the food out the door and tells it not to come back, it's fish custard. It's all glorious.
What I also liked was the fact in the new series previously to that, there was this romance between the Doctor and the companion, which I thought was getting a bit tiresome.
Well, they look it straight in the face with Amy, because in the Flesh and Stone, she basically grabs him and snogs him, and then that's when they bring Rory in, and basically it's like, okay, deal with this, because that's weird.
Because I know a lot of fans didn't particularly like it. It didn't bother me too much, you know, but it did start to get a bit tired.
Do you mean the whole romance thing, or Amy specifically?
No, the romance thing with the previous companions.
But there was a way to do it in a new way, because I think Martha suffered from trying to tread the same ground as Rose, and who wouldn't fall in love with this amazing, compassionate, wonderful alien that you meet? You know, it's completely...
You fancy him then?
I do, you know, I mean...
Yeah,
I do.
I see what you mean, though. Yeah.
But it's that thing of... The Doctor's such an incredible character and a hero and an amazing person that it's got to almost be addressed in some manner. And, you know, the series has found lots of different creative ways to do that, which is great. From Donna and the Doctor having this running joke of we're not a couple to Rose and Martha. But then this was taking the elephant in the room of Amy's character fancying the Doctor and dealing with it in a way that you couldn't imagine happening in Old Who.
I think the best way they dealt with it was, of course, River Song, because that was a character that was in love with the Doctor, but the Doctor was in love with her. Matt Smith, again, young guy, but, you know, he has this beautiful relationship with River, and it's a relationship and it's a partnership of equals, and I think that's where they've taken the whole companion in love with the Doctor and done something new with it, which actually makes it more interesting.
It's not getting in the way anymore. It's
I think
fueling the plot.
it's more realistic that the Doctor would fall in love with someone like River Song.
So, of course, every new Doctor has to meet the Daleks eventually, and Victory of the Daleks sets it in the Second World War and has a rather interesting twist of the Daleks appearing to be on the side of the British.
I have this kind of love-hate relationship with Mark Gatiss' stories.
I agree, totally agree.
I think Mark Gatiss, he does parody very well. This one, the first half of it, I really like. And then it becomes less good, mainly because when the new Daleks appear, and the new Daleks are terrible.
They were so weird, it was like a toy advert, that whole scene.
Yeah.
They just looked wrong. The shape was just proportioned badly, and
it's like the Volkswagen camper version or something. I don't know.
Wasn't
now that I think about it, the other thing which sort of breaks my heart was I didn't really like Bill Patterson's character.
Oh, I love Bill Patterson.
Well, I love him as an actor, and everything I've seen him in, from Fleabag back to Comfort and Joy, he's just an extraordinary actor. And for some reason, it just didn't win me over, this scientist. I'm not sure why. I like the arc, I like the twist and the route.
I love his final scene thing with the bomb. I think it's a lovely scene.
I suppose at the time I was missing RTD. I noticed more at the time that you know the young woman who'd lost her husband. He was an airman and all that. That was one of those scenes that RTD would have kind of made you care.
Milked.
Milked, but who cares?
He would have done it well.
He would have done it well.
Well milked.
And fuck.
This crystallises for me something about our differences in taste, because I think I find that RTD does stray more into the soap opera more than my taste enjoys, and Moffat doesn't so much. So for me, the balance is right.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. I just think, you know, I don't totally dismiss soap opera.
I'm not totally dismissing
No, I know that.
95%.
I mean, you know, I'm not a fan in general of soap opera, but I can admit that they do handle some certain things very well, and I just missed that sort of emotion. I like the fact that RTD, even the minor characters, you absolutely loved. Remember Rafalo, the plumber in End of the World? You know, a very minor type.
She was blue.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Very minor character, but I absolutely adored her.
Well,
just for those few minutes on screen.
Something about that particular character and performance maybe makes you just really like her straight away, and you're kind of empathising with Rose, I think.
Of course.
It's the moment where Rose gets over her culture shock.
Absolutely, of course. But again, tiny character moments, and I just felt that, you know, it wasn't really coming across as well as it had been.
The thing I like about Mark Gatiss' writing, he does character very well. He can create really, really good characters with maybe just 2 or 3 lines.
I think one of my favourites is The Crimson Horror. His writing for Diana Rigg's character and Rachel Sterling's character. I mean, they are mother and daughter in real life, but, you know, there was a beautiful back and forward between those, you know, and he really sells those characters very well.
Am I right in saying that the characters were written with them in mind?
I believe so.
Yeah.
The rest of Matt Smith's first season, let's just sort of whittle through that.
Yeah.
So we got the Dalek introduction, Victory of the Daleks. Then we have the return of the Weeping Angels. And for me, this sort of cheapened them a bit in that suddenly they had one perfect appearance before, you know, an iconic and brilliant episode, and it was great to see them back, but simultaneously it has to kind of take the shine off them a little bit.
It always does. So
I mean,
it's inevitable. I think it was mainly that now they kill people. There's, having watched it again relatively recently, there is a kind of justification for that change of method, but it's fairly slight.
I mean, what I always go back to is the character of Davros. When they brought him back, they should never really have brought him back. But if they hadn't brought him back, you wouldn't have had some really, really brilliant stories.
Yeah,
you know?
True. And then, of course, we after Flesh and Stone,
Vampires of Venice.
Yeah, you've just watched that one as well.
Yes, quite recently. It's a romp. I would say it's definitely in that romp category. And again, Matt Smith's just taking great delight in, are you vampires? What are you? Maybe you're not vampires. And teasing it out. You get that exposition delivered with the joy of his discovery of everything going on.
I do like the introductory scene where Matt Smith bursts out of a cake. Supposedly the stripper at Rory's wedding.
So Amy's Choice has a nice sort of playing with the format. I think you've got two worlds. We're not sure which one's real and which one isn't.
And of course, evil old people. My absolute sort of nemesis. We get to kill off evil old people again in this, which is always a good thing.
So the return of the Silurians next in the Hungry Earth and Cold Blood. Chris Chibnall episodes, which I really enjoyed. I've literally just watched these, and they are really strong on atmosphere and character and everything. I think they're great.
You've got the actor now. David will know the name because he knows everything.
Don't bet on it.
The actor who plays the Silurian physician, he's also
Stephen
Marvin.
Miller.
He
died
was
recently, unfortunately.
Yeah, he did. Unfortunately, he was always one of my choices to play the Doctor. I always thought he'd be really, really good. There's some great performances. Neve Campbell. Neve Campbell.
I get them mixed up as well.
Yeah, who eventually goes on to play Madame Vastra. Wonderful performance.
I think at some point we should do a Chaz's celebrity Doctor Who casting based on all the people whose names you get wrong.
Yeah.
So we've had Liam Neeson instead of Liam
That's
Cunningham.
true, yeah.
Now we've got Neve Campbell. I think this could be a hell of an
It's just my wish list, I suppose.
Big Finish can make a whole series with these castings.
How do you feel about the kind of redesign of the Silurians? That was a bit of a jump.
It was, yeah. I agree. It's a great design, but it's very far away from the old one.
The problem with it is I liked it, but I didn't think it was a good idea to have them have human eyes. It just seemed weird. They're reptilian based. Surely it should have been reptilian type eyes.
It tries to have its cake and eat it by having the masks have the big
masks,
size.
good, very good. But
I thought it was a brave decision. Yeah.
When we looked at Cold War, we talked about how the redesign of the Ice Warrior costume was so faithful to the original, and this one has a much bigger conceptual gap, if you like, between old series and new. But you wouldn't want to sort of faithfully reproduce a costume that was a little bit rubbery and unconvincing.
But that's basically what they've done. All the successful monsters they brought back, they basically haven't changed much. You know, like the Daleks. I mean, before the Daleks made a reappearance in the new series, you had all these people that sending in all these different designs of Daleks, and they were all very different, and they all, they look like wasps and like you name it. But when Russell T Davies decided to bring them back, they thought, that's iconic, we're not really going to change that,
But things can still get inflected and evolve in little ways, and that's part of what's glorious about the sort of rich, long history of Doctor Who. Is there's so much, if you like, idea space within which things can move.
I agree with the whole iconic thing, especially with the Daleks, but what you've got to also remember is the Daleks are very much in the public consciousness, even though Doctor Who hadn't been around for many, many years.
Yeah.
Whereas the Silurians, it's fans. The public in general aren't going to remember them. They're not going to remember the Zygons that much. They'll say the one with the wobbly things or the one with the maggots and that.
But again, the Zygons, they didn't change them.
No, I know. Yeah, I know. I mean, I suppose that it was a body horror thing.
But you had to let Zygons be Zygons. I had to
get that one.
Vincent and the Doctor we've mentioned recently as well, talking about the mental health themes that were in Can You Hear Me? And again, Vincent Van Gogh's character, now who plays him?
Yeah, it's Tony Curran.
Tony Curran, yeah.
Another
great
Scot.
actor. Another Scot, yeah.
That is a beautifully handled episode. It handles the themes so well. When I first watched it, I did have a problem, but I think, ironically, I was in one of my black dog periods at the time, so I wasn't in the right sort of frame of mind to watch it.
That is bitterly ironic.
Yeah, it really, really is, and having watched it when I'm sort of, stable or whatever you want to call it, I wept watching it, but I wept, sort of happy.
Cathartic.
Because it was so beautifully handled. And again, Can You Hear Me? Not bad, but still not as well handled. This one nailed it.
We come back to the Lodger.
I love the Lodger.
So do I.
Good.
I love James Corden. I think James Corden's funny. I think he's a nice guy. It's such a beautiful character. And Debbie Shazan, who plays his sort of love interest, she is a wonderful, wonderful actress. The chemistry between the two of them is absolutely beautiful.
I speak baby now.
Yes.
Stormageddon.
Stormageddon. Oh.
That's just genius.
It really, really
and
is.
it's probably one of my favourite all-time episodes in Doctor Who.
I mean, it does. Let's just take it seriously for a moment. Is this real? In Doctor Who's universe, do babies speak and do they call themselves Stormageddon, or is this just the Doctor being either insane or extraordinarily silly?
Well, he does talk to Melody Pond.
It sort of pays off again. It's sort of Moffat manages to get a little serious.
And the Doctor speaks dinosaur and deep breath. So
it's true. I guess it's the sort of silliness that Doctor Who can do very well and get away with just about.
Again, it's a brilliant throwaway line, which Doctor
fantastic.
Who, in its element, does so well
and can pursue. It can take a throwaway line and go deep on it for fun. We talked about the sort of comic actors appearing in Doctor Who as well, and I think that there is this curse of the comic actor, and it totally won me over.
A really nice little thing about the perception filter, the house at the top that didn't really exist. It looked like some sort of TARDIS, but it wasn't.
It's as if you didn't really need that at all.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest,
it was just about the relationship.
Because Matt Smith was training at one point to be a professional footballer, he's absolutely brilliant on the pitch.
Yeah. That's his version of Peter Davison's cricket match.
Absolutely,
course,
yeah.
It's a lovely episode.
Yeah, it really is.
So the season rounds out with the Pandorica and the resolution of the arc of the crack in the wall that's been kind of there throughout. And I remember being a little bit kind of underwhelmed by the kind of grand gathering of all the monsters ever.
I love the bit at the start about the first message.
That's straight out of the end of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
You steal for the best. It's wonderful, and just that Hello Sweetie thing.
I thought the Pandorica opens was really epic. When I first watched it, I thought this is great, because before that the last few stories have been quite insular, I think. This, it opens up like a feature film. The Stonehenge stuff was really nice. The area underlit Stonehenge was a really nice idea,
It is epic, and it's sort of the first inklings of how epic Moffat's going to get.
Well, the grand plan is writ large through second season because there's the whole kind of arc that we alluded to when we talked about Rebel Flesh and Almost People with Amy and the Flesh, and then the just shock at the end of Almost People when the Doctor discovers finally that Amy's Flesh. I'm genuinely fascinated whether Stephen Moffat plans all of this to any depth or if he just seeds it with stuff and then later on he goes, okay, what can I make of this?
I tend to think he does have a plan, whereas RTD, I know for definite, didn't always have a plan. You read the writer's tale and it's like he's sort of saying, he will knock 4 times, and it wasn't until later that he linked it with the da-da-da-da and then the heartbeat of a Time Lord.
Good writers start off with good ideas and build on them.
Yeah.
So the second season sort of came out in 2 parts, and The Good Man Goes to War rounds out the first part. The second part, I really, really loved Let's Kill Hitler. Just in everything from its title to the introduction of Mel.
It was just mad.
It is absolutely
romp all over.
Very much. It's a clickbait title. It really is like clickbait, but the best clickbait because you're just getting the maddest storyline. Melody Pond is actually River Song. So many beautiful, mad elements to it.
The whole episode is like a larger, more involved version of the introduction to the Red Dwarf episode with Ace Rimmer fighting the Nazis. Ending up with parachuting down to the crocodile.
Brilliant as well. I love that. Stoke me a clipper. I'll be home for Christmas.
The first half of that season, The Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon, that introduces, of course, the Silence. One of the most beautiful visual openings of Doctor Who. When you go to the desert and everything, the colours are so rich.
Just him in the cowboy hat on the car.
This whole season was told backwards. I love that. I do like that as a writing device. I think it's very clever when it's done well.
Yeah.
And one thing Moffat does is he does use that device a lot. He used it in coupling and many other things, but I think it's really done very well.
It takes someone of Stephen Moffat's calibre to write something like that.
He's always been a master of structure and making structure work for him.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, I would say 4/10 gimmick and 6/10 kind of genius.
I have to say, for a lot of it, I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
Probably still don't understand it. But a lot of it is sheer brilliance.
But see, isn't that the thing, right? You know when something is well done, even if you're not necessarily understanding it,
you're enjoying
that
it.
doesn't matter because you're enjoying it so much. I mean, you could say that it's smoke and mirrors. Look over here, don't look over there.
That's half of drama.
But if it's done well, why not?
So the next season's divided between the Ponds kind of branding out their story arc, and then we get Clara coming in. And Clara's another sort of new take on a companion, having appeared in multiple episodes and in multiple identities.
Yeah.
So there's this huge mystery from the get-go with this character.
Yeah. She's introduced in, of course, The Snowmen. Definitely a romp, but it's the return of the Great Intelligence. Richard E. Grant doing a nice little sort of arch villain turn.
You've got the Paternosters.
Absolutely. A very subdued performance from Matt Smith because he's lost the pawns.
It's sometimes good when the Doctor takes a pause.
Yeah.
You know.
It's interesting that they almost never do it in Old Who, that you get serious time passing. I don't know if it's deliberate or if it's just a kind of almost the default because of the serial episode by episode nature that the show began with. But it does feel like a break or a shock, or like somehow we're doing something that's different whenever you come back and a chunk of time has passed. And of course the writers have exploited the fact that this can be huge amounts of time on the human scale.
Absolutely.
And it's something for Big Finish to like.
Yeah,
dwell
there's
on.
a gap.
Your brain doesn't know what to fill the gap with, so leaves it blank.
I do love the scene with the mind worm.
That's hilarious, isn't it?
Isn't that a brilliant scene and brilliantly funny scene? You know,
God.
Strax
is.
Will I get the worm, sir?
I mean, the thing is, right, Strax is absolutely comic gold. He's a brilliant character. And I don't mean this in any bad way, my only thing was that I thought you're kinda going to be really difficult doing the Suntarans and making them threatening, and that's a very minor niggle, and I wouldn't change it for a moment because Strax is possibly one of my favourite characters. He's just
But again,
brilliant.
it's why I've always loved the Centaurans,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
over the Daleks and the Cybermen, because you can interchange the Daleks and the Cybermen. There's no real character.
Yeah, they have personalities.
The Centaurans have character.
Yeah. Very
ironically, the clone race are the least interchangeable. So we kind of build up through the 50th anniversary year to the Day of the Doctor, which was released in cinemas and had a little preamble film by Strax delivered quiet down and listen. It was great fun. It was just lovely to see Doctor in the cinema.
I saw it on the night of broadcast on television, and I went to see it the next day at the cinema, and it was a magical experience. To see it on this big screen felt like a dream come true. That story is practically perfection.
Yeah.
You invent a new Doctor that fits in beautifully and actually expands on the series mythology. So,
and you get someone as brilliant as John Hurt. Into
yeah, exactly. I mean, what a fucking piece of casting. Getting John Hurt, you know, the guy's an absolute bloody legend. So you've got all these elements, and to say that, you know, that was a poison chalice for Stephen Moffat is an understatement, because that was a guarantee that, oh God, people are going to hate this, you know? I mean, I'm sure there are people that hate it. I've not heard anybody
I love it.
that thinks, you know, that sort of really says anything bad about it. It's absolutely brilliant.
I think Stephen Moffat has said that's the highlight of his tenure in Doctor Who, you know. And you can agree with that.
If you're going to peak, that was the perfect moment to peak.
He's done some wonderful stuff, but he pulled that off. Yeah,
I mean, it's fucking genius. But I mean, John Hurt is he's fucking brilliant as a Doctor. I mean, he was playing a beautiful bridge because he was an old school Doctor reacting to new school Doctors.
That's where the conflict lay in the whole thing. Yeah.
There's some really brave choices as well in ways to have the cake and eat it, in terms of bringing back Billy Piper, but without having to retread the whole Rose story arc.
Really, really well
I was
done.
dreading that a wee bit.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were
I basically had enough of Rose, you know.
Yeah.
Well done at the time, you know, but She kept like disappearing for the last time, and then they brought her back again.
It was such an intelligent decision to do it in a different way.
And of course, I have to really mention the stuff with McGann.
The Night of the Doctor.
And the trailers, you know, that trailer with the St. Gallifrey, can't remember what it's called. And you get the tiny wee Dalek just coming through. They did the publicity very well, but I think it shows up what they're doing now for the current season. Publicity wise, it's been incredibly poor in my opinion.
I agree.
I suspect they had a lot more kind of leeway, particularly for the 50th, and that seemed a more concerted corporation-wide effort, if you like.
You can't really let it lie. You can't expect it to publicise itself, and you have to take every opportunity to do it, and they haven't been doing it. The trailers, I know I've gone on about the trailers before, but the trailers are pointless, you know, they don't reveal anything. They don't make you want to watch the next episode.
Last season was even worse. It just felt like, I mean, when they showed the coming soon trailer,
it was just a list of people.
A list of actors. If you're 10 years old, why do you give a fuck who's in it?
As I said earlier, we're the monsters.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting because it sort of maybe betrays a mindset that's people are going to watch this for who they recognise in it rather than, you know, putting more value on that than selling the stories.
I totally agree,
and the
but, you know, that's an adult thing maybe, but not for kids.
They did exactly the same thing for Sylvester McCoy's first season.
Did they?
It was just a list, you know, clips of the special guests, like Ken Dodd and Richard Pryor, Stubby K. You know, you're sitting there as a fan thinking, what's the new Doctor going to be like?
I'm not being funny, but, you know, it was probably not a bad idea for Sylvester McCoy's first season, because, you know, as much as I like McCoy, you know, it's probably a good idea to hide
But it's
a
as
lot
if
of
they were maybe, I don't think they were, but I get the impression, even watching these first episode thing, were they embarrassed by him and they didn't want to like show any of them, you know?
So the 11th Doctor's era ends with the time of the Doctor. What did we make of this?
Beautiful.
I don't think it was a brilliant story.
Had a hard act to follow, for sure, didn't it?
Admittedly, yeah.
I thought it was okay.
I agree with you, though.
Again, Matt Smith's performance sold it. You know.
That's where it always goes for me. I mean, there were some great little bits in it, you know, like when he meets Clara's family, you know, and he forgets that he's sort of got the hologrammatic clothes or whatever, you know, he's naked. And, you know, the bit with Tasha Lem, they obviously couldn't get River Song back at that point. So, you know, they invent a new character. And that whole Church of the Papal Mainframe, I mean, it was absolutely mad ideas, and I really kind of loved it. And the idea of the Doctor sacrificing himself, knowing that this is his last life, is
that's just so Doctor-ish,
beautiful.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's like Davison sacrificing his life for one person. Tennant sacrificed his life for, let's be honest, a man who was in his 80s.
But it's Bernard Cribbins, though.
Well, of course, yeah.
I mean, he wouldn't, But
I mean, that's the Doctor.
There is some beautiful moments in it, especially the end.
Yeah.
I wish maybe for once that the Doctor wouldn't regenerate in the TARDIS. Maybe did something new with it.
Yeah. It does feel like New Who regenerations have almost been formulaic.
Yeah.
They regenerate in the TARDIS explodes.
Yeah, well, I think that's, you know, the new showrunner comes in, they want to build another TARDIS, etc. So
I think they could just find another way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There should be another way.
It's the end. But the moment has been prepared for.
9 times out of 10.
Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to David for coming along, and it's been fun.
Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed your past episodes, and
great.
I'm looking forward to the future.
So thank you for listening. If you've any feedback or questions, or if you spent Christmas with a Dalek, then we can be reached at randomizerpodcast@gmail.com.
And as always, follow us on Twitter, Tweet.
I'll explain it later.
Yeah. Okay, the thing that you can go on that's apparently something to do with media and socialising.
You know, last week I actually copied and pasted his previous reading of this because he didn't fuck it up. So
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. We can be reached at Randomizer Pod.
You can't be reached, man.
No, I can never be reached. In both cases, that's with an S, not a Z.
Can I go to the toilet now?
No.
Fuckarama.
Is this scripted?
Not enough.